Are you ready for Senior Front-End Developer interview question?
Yes, sir, I am ready.
Then explain the difference between Promise.all, Promise.race, and Promise.any.
That's a little tricky. Let me try to remember this from last week's YouTube video.
Hello everyone, and today we are going to cover a senior front-end interview question which is a little tricky and based on promises. So let me just jump into the code and explain you the question. So here I have a code pen open. So basically this is a question on promises where we have three promises defined. There is promise 1 which resolves with promise 1 result, and has a set timeout set to 1 second. Then you have promise 2 which is again resolving, and it is set to 1.5 seconds, and it has a output as promise to resolve, or it is resolving the statement. Then we have the promise 3 which has a set timeout again at 1.5 seconds, just like promise 2, but it is rejecting instead of resolve, and it has a statement like promise 3 rejected. Now the emphasis of the interviewer is on asking that if we club all these three promises in, let's just say, Promise.all, what would be the result, like whether it will be all the results or whether it will go into the catch and print the error. Then if we club it in the Promise.race, and let's just say if we club them using Promise.any, then what will be the output? So basically this is a guess the output question, and these three statements output needs to be like guessed or observed. So let me just jump into the output before we jump into the explanation of why the output happened. So let me just open the console. Now as you can see, the first that we had was Promise.all, and as we can see, the Promise.all resolves with promise 3 rejected. The second one which we had was Promise.race, and Promise.race result is promise 1 resolved, and then there is Promise.any whose result is promise 1 resolved. Now let's jump back into presentation and understand why this happened. So let me just jump into the presentation. Now the first thing that we had was Promise.all, and the way Promise.all works is it tries to run all the promises and it tries to resolve all the promises. But if any of the promises get rejected, then it immediately fails, and it fails with the first rejection. Similarly, if we get into the code, we can see that Promise.all resolved was not resolved, but it was rejected. Like the output was in the catch block, and we have the error with the statement as promise 3 rejected. The reason for this being we had three promises and the third one was getting rejected, which is why Promise.all responded with the error syntax, and we had the promise 3 rejected as the output. The second one that we have is the Promise.any, and in this case what we have is it will resolve with the first successful resolved promise and will ignore all the rejections. Like this will try to check whether if any of the promises get resolved, and if any of the first promise that get resolved, that will be the output of Promise.any. Now if you jump into the code pen, we can see that the Promise.any result is promise 1 resolved. The reason for this being we had two promises which were supposed to get resolved, promise 1 and promise 2, but promise 1 was executing in 1 second and promise 2 was getting executed in 1.5 seconds. So promise 1 got resolved first, which is why the Promise.any result is promise 1 resolved. Similarly, we have the Promise.race, and in case of Promise.race, the output is the result of the first promise to settle. So it does not care whether it is resolved or rejected, but it will just wait for the first promise to get resolved or rejected, and the first promise that gets fulfilled of the two, that will be the output of Promise.race. Basically we are racing in the all the promises. We are like running a race between all the promises, and the first one to gets fulfilled is the output of Promise.race. If we get into the code, we can see that the Promise.race result is output is promise 1 resolved. The reason for this being of the three promises, the second and third promise was getting resolved after 1.5 second, but promise 1 was getting resolved in 1 second, which is why it was resolved earlier, and that is the reason why Promise.race result is promise 1 resolved, and yeah, that is why it got resolved first. So that was a simple and short explanation of how Promise.any, Promise.all, and Promise.race executes, and that is how the promises are handled. So this is kind of interview questions are typically asked, in front-end interview rounds, because you are supposed to know promises in and out. You need to know how they work internally, and also you need to know the various ways in which the promises can be run in chain. So yeah, thank you for watching the video till now, and thank you for supporting the channel. If you found this video useful, then subscribe to the channel for more such videos, and I would like to see you in the next video for sure. That's it from my end for today. Thank you. Have a nice day. Goodbye.
Phew, one question answered properly. Let's see what comes next.
Now explain what is cause in detail and how to configure different parameters in it.
To be continued.